Welcome into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube and KSL NewsRadio. I am your BYU insider, Mitch Harper, for KSLSports.com. BYU football is 2-0 in 2025, and let's dive into that win over the weekend against Stanford in our top story of the day right here on Cougar Tracks.
The top story of the day. The biggest story in the world of BYU sports right here on Cougar Tracks.
27-3, BYU takes care of business against the Stanford Cardinal. It was never in doubt, and I'd like to maybe pat myself on the back a little bit, just a little tap, not anything too excessive, but I feel like I kind of called it during the week last week on Cougar Tracks, and if you've missed the show and are new to the program, this show is daily, every single day, holding it down here on Cougar Tracks on KSL Sports YouTube, KSLSports.com, and KSL NewsRadio. But throughout last week, I was saying BYU's going to be in control of this game. It's just going to feel like a game where Stanford's always kind of hanging around, but because Stanford has no real threat through the air, BYU's going to comfortably win this game. And it kind of played out that way, but there were some up and down moments for the offense. In particular, you think about the starting field position for BYU was excellent. They were starting on average at their own 45-yard line. They had 5 drives in the game at either Stanford's territory or at midfield, yet in those 5 drives that had excellent field position, you only end up with 1 touchdown. We're talking about a different forecast or revisionist history on this game if BYU scores 3 touchdowns on those 5 drives or 4 touchdowns. So keep that in mind. Will Farron, helmet sticker for him. He was brilliant, 4 of 4 on field goals, and he kept this to a point where BYU was in a comfortable margin throughout. But even Kalani Sitake noted after the game that BYU was not worried about this outcome throughout the game, yet there's still some areas where BYU can definitely improve. This was Kalani Sitake after the game.
But overall, just happy with the win. Obviously, looking at Stanford, they obviously had an extra week to prep for us, and hopefully we can take advantage of the extra week ourselves and get ready for East Carolina. But they did some really good things on defense, threw us off a little bit. They're a little bit more familiar with our quarterback, and so we just got to control the things that we control. With all that being said, happy that we were able to win the game, and didn't ever feel like we were stressed in the game completely. So
I think that's a great point that Kalani made, and I know sometimes Kalani gets labeled as the ultimate coach speak guy, but if you sort through the weeds a little bit, he gives you some gems and the truth serum as well. If you listen to him enough, you hear the truth within some of the coach speak lingo. I think he's right, though. Bear Bachmeier was a known guy to Stanford. Frank Reich downplayed that angle going into the matchup, the interim head coach for the Cardinal. But they knew Bear. They had 4 months with the guy and knew him. They've been with him as long as BYU has. Heck, maybe even longer. I mean, BYU has had Bear on campus since the end of May. It's longer than BYU. Stanford had him. So they knew, I don't want to say Bear's tendencies because things change over the course of a calendar year, but I think that helped in piecing together a game plan because Stanford's defense, credit to them, they did a really nice job. 3 sacks on Bear Bachmeier. Bear took a lot of hits, and Kalani noted in the postgame that that's something he did not like. Bear had 12 carries, 7 yards, but he was taking some hits. But I do think that Stanford's knowledge of Bear Bachmeier was beneficial, and Bear's still, gaining valuable snaps. And I thought Chase Roberts as well had some pretty candid commentary about the offense and how this is a work in progress, folks, and it's going to be something that they got to continue to get better week after week.
Yeah, it just takes time. Obviously with the short time that we had when he came in late and with fall camp, going through some, different injuries and things like that, and you try to figure out who's the starting quarterback, and it just takes time. And I think it's been awesome to have game reps now and to be able to get everything rolling, to hit on a deep ball now. And now I think it brings the confidence to Bear. I need to make catches myself and all the receivers as well. And the pass game's going to start soaring, and you'll start seeing it soon. And Right now it's figuring things out, and it's been a great couple games. I think perfect for us to start the season. We have a bye week now, rest up, heal up, and then really get rolling, get that connection even more in the next 2 weeks. So.
Chase is always pretty honest. I respect that commentary from Chase because it is taking time. Just this notion that it was all ready to go and the chemistry was already there. Yes, they're developing that, but it's a work in progress still. Bear Bachmeier finished the game 17 of 27, 175 yards, 0 touchdowns. You don't like that, but you love the 0 INTs. Now, Bear, in that first drive, tip ball, JoJo Phillips extends out, ball goes up in the air, could have been a pick. JoJo's got to help out Bear. Chase has got to help Bear. Parker Kingston's got to help Bear. All three of the starters had moments where, at wide receiver, where they're kind of letting down Bear Bachmeier. They got to help him out. But you like that through 2 weeks, Bear Bachmeier hasn't thrown a pick. His completion rate through 2 weeks is about 63%. That's manageable. I think for a true freshman, that's pretty good. You'll take that. I think Bear's going to continue to get better. But I do believe that the playbook, and look, we're not sitting in the meetings going into these games of what exactly they're going to run, but it has been surprising that BYU is not taking as many shots vertically down the field. That's a staple of BYU offenses, and I bring that up because Aaron Roderick at fall camp, when he named Bear Bachmeier the starting quarterback, he noted that Bear can run plays to the level, and I'm paraphrasing, but run plays similar to a Zach Wilson, a Jaron Hall, a Jake Retzloff in terms of his knowledge of the playbook. So why aren't we seeing more of that? And you've got some talent and depth at wide receiver. Even when JoJo gets banged up and he's in the sling, Parker Kingston's having a tough day, you still have Cody Hagan. You still have Chase Roberts. You still have talented players to turn to in that receiver unit. You still got Tiger Bachmeier. So I want to see that playbook opened up a little bit more through the air. Now, it's not completely mandatory because I said all along during fall camp that BYU was going to be content to win games like this, where you run the football 25 times between LJ Martin and Sione Moa, and then you have another, 3 carries between Parker Kingston and Javesa Damouni. They're okay running the football. And then you also had Bear Bachmeier taking runs too. Some of that, of course, factors into the 3 sacks, but he had 12 carries. So 41 total carries, if you include all of it, 41 carries for BYU on the ground. Aaron Roderick's fine with that. And honestly, I'm okay with that too. I think just get the win, stay healthy relatively. And BYU was a little bit banged up in that Stanford game. JoJo Phillips, Che Bryant Strother on the defensive side, Waylon Lapuaho still out. But rely on your strength of this offense, which is running the football. And that's good. But I do want to see that aerial attack a little bit more because Bear has learned the playbook. Let's see a little bit more shots downfield. I want to see that. So that's going to be something to me to watch going forward for BYU. They're in the bye week, and you hope that this bye week becomes a huge opportunity to really expand the comfort level, the depth of the playbook, to where they feel really confident that Bear can execute those plays and make it happen through the air. Because BYU, if they want to be a 10-win football team again, they got to be able to get chunk plays through the air. And I like that, as Chase noted, that second half ball, deep ball to Chase from Bear, maybe that gives them a little bit of momentum heading into the bye week. But also, too, this defense is elite for BYU. We were focusing a lot on the offense here, and I'll talk more on the defense coming up a little bit later. But this defense is truly elite, and BYU is in a great spot there. Let's take a break. On the other side, we'll get to more BYU Stanford, and then also you can subscribe to the show here on Cougar Tracks, wherever you get your podcasts, and also check it out on the KSL Sports YouTube page. Taking a break, more Cougar Tracks next. Cougar Tracks Podcast rolls on here on the KSL Sports YouTube. Mitch Harper with you. BYU football left outside the AP Top 25 poll once again. Cougs are the second team outside of the poll this week. Last week they were first team out. They drop after a 27-3 win over Stanford. Is this sound the alarm? Is this concerning? To me, honestly, I'm okay with BYU being outside the rankings. Not because I want to say, oh, give them the chip on the shoulder, the underdog mentality. I'm not saying that. I'm not subscribing to that thought. It's okay. Like, if you don't think BYU's been overly impressive and then you factor in the resume, the teams that they beat, sure. Don't rank BYU. I'm fine with that. I think the bigger issue that I have is how Big 12 teams get treated. And this goes beyond BYU. I look at Arizona State, number 12 team in the country last week. They lose on the road to an SEC team in Mississippi State. Then they fall completely out of the poll. They fall out. They are now technically, if it extended that far, number 26. So they drop 14 spots after taking a chance, going on the road, down to Starkville. And I know Kenny Dillingham made all these issues about small towns and hotels and casinos and this and that. But they took a shot. They played a home and home. They hammered Mississippi State in Tempe last year. Score was closer than it looked last year, but they hammered them. But they go on the road to an SEC team, and they made a disastrous mistake defensively. Sam Levitt didn't have his greatest game, but they lose that game. Okay, they lose. You now fade them completely? And then the week prior, Alabama in week 1 loses to a program that was 2-10 last year in Florida State. Bama stays in the poll. Florida State catapults in. I just think, what is it about the Big 12 where the margin is so narrow for Big 12 teams to the media? Look, the SEC is a good league. It's a good league. Auburn rolled into Waco, beat Baylor by 2 touchdowns. This is a good league, the SEC. Big 12 plays good football too, though. 11 SEC teams in the AP Top 25. Does the media just get enamored with the 2 leagues anymore? Is this all that is? Do the Big 12 have any chance to climbing the ladder in the AP rankings? And look, the AP rankings ultimately don't mean anything, sure, but it kind of feels like it is a influencer to the college football playoff rankings. Now, the playoff rankings are different, and they're willing to have rankings that are radically different in some instances to the AP rankings. They will evaluate teams completely different than the AP. They have done that. But it does feel like it's a little bit of a barometer, and it's important to get into that thing. I just think these Big 12 teams, no matter what they do, they're almost capped at that 11 to 12 threshold. No one can wrap their mind around the idea of, wow, TCU looked explosive against North Carolina. They're not even ranked. Not even ranked. Everyone was hyping up Carolina in the offseason. Doesn't matter now. Now North Carolina's terrible. And they might be. They struggled a little bit with Charlotte. They won that football game, North Carolina. But still, why is the margin for error so narrow for Big 12 teams? That's what blows me away. And BYU, it didn't help their cause that they played late at night, where most of the pollsters probably put their ballots in. It's funny when you cover a BYU game late at night, and then you see on social media feeds, whether it's Instagram, X, Facebook, you see these stories roll out. Week 2 recap. Folks, there's a team right outside the poll that's playing, and they're at halftime. They're up 14-0. Does that not exist to you? Like, I'm sorry that this game is taking place at 2 a.m. on your time zone, but shouldn't you watch this game? Shouldn't you stay up to watch this game that's knocking on the door of the poll? That's my issue with these polls. Everyone's just closing the book on the week because they don't want to stay up for the BYU late night game or any late night Big 12 game. That's the issue to me. That just, it seems like the Big 12 teams just have no potential to get higher than 12. And then once they do, and if they lose to someone that they deem not very good, they then say, fade them. out of the poll completely. Like, Arizona State's pretty good still. Yeah, I mean, they still ran the ball at a very high level. Sam Leavitt had an off day, but to completely kick them out of the poll, to go on the road to Starkville in what the media calls the greatest conference on the planet. And yes, the SEC is really good. They haven't won the title, though, the last 2 years, but I digress. They've got the SEC, 11 teams in the poll this week. They go out on the road and play an SEC team, Arizona State, and then they're just out of the poll completely. Because Mississippi State was bad last year, and they just think Mississippi State's just perpetually bad. Like, doesn't matter what they think, they're out. They're bad. It's crazy to me. I don't get it. That's the crazy thing about college football. That's just hard to stomach. And you watch things like the NFL, and you go, like, how would the college football media handle the Buffalo Bills last night or the Baltimore Ravens? No, you don't do that in the NFL. You just let it play out. That's the beauty of the NFL. And that's why, honestly, if we do get to a world where college football breaks off and has some 40, 50, 60 team deal, maybe we can eliminate these narratives in college football and it can just truly play out on the field. Hopefully, maybe we can get to that day, but that's probably naive thinking because this is college football and there's always going to be narratives. I digress. Let's get to the recruiting trail. Talk about narratives. Recruiting trail, a recruiting update for BYU football. Ryder Lyons over the weekend, him and Folsom High School, they struggled over the weekend against Mission Viejo. 53-14, they lost to Mission Viejo High School. Tough game. Ryder had a first half interception. They just kind of pounced on Folsom. Mission Viejo, really good. One of the best teams, not only in California, but the country too. Their defense was swarming Ryder Lyons. So tough day for him. I did see Ryder Lyons was on those Under Armour commercials during NFL games. That was pretty cool. Seeing Ryder Lyons, a BYU commit, getting national recognition in commercials during NFL games. He's got a big brand. He also went to Disneyland this weekend, Ryder Lyons. So we're on Ryder Lyons watch. This is going to be the unofficial Ryder Lyons, gossip corner. Cougar Tracks. We're following all things Ryder here on Cougar Tracks. But no, it's just always fun to see his social media content and his reach. People love Ryder Lyons, and so we'll give him that content of Ryder Lyons. But it was pretty cool seeing him in that Under Armour commercial over the weekend. Some other recruiting news. BYU hosted a bunch of visitors, unofficial visitors, at the Stanford game. One in particular that was noteworthy, the number 1 5-star tight end in the class of 2028, Titan McNeil, out of Sammamish, Washington. That was the same place, I believe, as Jake Heaps back in the day. Eastside Catholic High School. He was at the BYU game against Stanford on Saturday. He was with Justin Anna after the game. Justin Anna was at McNeil's high school game for Eastside Catholic the night before against East High. Eastside Catholic just handled East High with ease. But Titan McNeil took a game visit in, and let's see what BYU, what they can do to maybe get in the mix to land a guy like Titan McNeil down the road. He's class of 2028, so long way to go. BYU offered him back in the spring evaluation period, but keep an eye on him. Whenever guys take a game visit or on campus, it's always a data point that's noteworthy, and you say, okay, maybe there's a puncher's chance, but he's a 5-star number 1 tight end out of Washington in the country. Some other guys that caught my attention, Brock Harris, of course, was there. BYU commit, Steeler Wesley, an Orem High tight end, class of 2028. He was there. Ty Asaya out of Marietta Valley High School, the same high school as Bear Bachmeier. He was there. He's a quarterback in the class of 2028. He was in attendance for a game visit. He's already got offers from the likes of Ole Miss, so one to keep an eye on down the road there. He was in attendance. And then Mountain View quarterback Tate Johnson. There were some others as well. There was a lot of guys on that sideline and behind the BYU bench during their win over Stanford. But just some quick recruiting news and notes. But I thought Titan McNeil's presence there, being the number 1 tight end in the country for class of 2028, a 5-star prospect, that's always significant when you're hosting a 5-star. Let's take our final break. On the other side, I'll get to the Cougar Stock Exchange right here on Cougar Tracks, and it's powered by KSL Sports. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube and KSL News Radio. Final segment of the show today. Again, putting a bow on BYU and Stanford. Cougs get it done over the Cardinal 27-3, and let's unpack some more of it from that weekend that was in the Cougar Stock Exchange.
The Cougar Stock Exchange. What's trending up and what's trending down? It's the Cougar Stock Exchange.
We do this on Mondays. It's the Cougar Stock Exchange. What's trending up and trending down? Trending up for me is the BYU safeties. Falatau Satuala, Raider to Mooney, both had excellent games. Falatau Satuala, I asked him about the readiness, the preparation level of this defense heading into the contest against Stanford, and he highlighted Jay Hill and how he had this defense ready to roll against Stanford.
I would say we were prepared for everything. Coach Hill's a genius. Like, sometimes I don't even know how he knows what's coming, but he knows what's coming every time, so we were ready for everything.
I think they definitely were. They were not rattled by anything that Stanford's offense threw at them. It's been interesting with that safety position because, Raider to Mooney and Tanner Wall, I think, have proven themselves to be mainstay starters week after week. And Raider to Mooney, I thought, was excellent in that game. He got that pick, and I continue to point to underrated speed that he displayed getting it into the red zone on that interception return. I think Raiders looking great this season. But then you've got this intriguing talent in Falatau Satuala, a heralded prospect out of Bountiful High School, 4-star guy. He's got all the accolades. You want to find a way to work him in. Maybe it's a case of, best of all worlds where everyone's getting theirs. And Falatau Satuala got his, and he had a safety, an interception, his best game as a BYU Cougar. So that safety unit, high expectations for them coming into the season with 5 guys being really talented, plus maybe a 6th being Matthias Leach. That group is trending up for BYU heading into the bye week. I think also another guy that's trending up is Logan Latui. 6 tackles, 2 solo, 1.5 tackles for loss. Logan Latui, he kind of gets slept on. And I'll admit, I kind of looked at him being just maybe the veteran key cog on the defensive line. What's the impact going to look like? But he knows Jay Hill's defense inside and out. And Logan Latui has been excellent through the first 2 weeks of the season. Very excited about the early returns of what Logan Latui is providing to this defensive line. And you also have to point out Keanu Tanavasa. It's interesting. He gets a sack in this game, but maybe the pressures were at a higher level against Portland State. But Tanavasa just accounts for so much attention from opposing offensive lines. When you just watch the trench play in a game, if you focus between the battles on the offensive and defensive lines instead of watching the football in a game, man, it is just amazing how much attention Keanu draws. And then it frees up Logan Latui. It frees up, John Talmoy Payao. It frees up all these guys to then make plays, but still Keanu's getting his too. I think Keanu's living up to every bit the hype that he earned when he transferred in from Utah to BYU. Kicker Will Farron, excellent. And I really wanted to see that 64-yard boot, that attempt. Kalani said they considered it. I was hoping. I wanted to see that, 60-plus yarder. BYU's program high in the school's history is 56, and Will tied that up last week against Portland State. I wanted to see BYU give him a chance at 64 yards. That would have been epic to see if he could boot it. I'm not betting against Will Farron, man. If he gets that opportunity at some point this year, I'm going to think that guy can kick it. But what a nice luxury, though, for BYU. You think about in years past when you didn't have that peace of mind at the kicker spot. It's almost the stars aligned this year in terms of scheduling, in terms of the defense, in terms of the special teams to aid a true freshman quarterback. Because if Bear Bachmeier has a drive that is in opponent territory to start and it stalls, well, don't worry, young man. You got the peace of mind knowing that Will Farron's going to finish the job. And that is a great luxury for BYU. I know Kalani doesn't want to see Will all the time. He wants to see more touchdowns, as does Cougar Nation. But it's a great luxury for BYU to have an automatic kicker that's reliable. No matter the circumstances, he's going to get it done. LJ Martin, too. I mean, we haven't talked enough about him on today's show, but LJ's LJ. I mean, you've heard a lot about him already. He was just excellent once again. 18 carries, 110 yards, 6.1 yards per carry. LJ continues to trend up. He is looking great this season. Now, that's the trending up. That's all the good stuff. Trending down, I'm going to go with the wide receivers. And I say that because the wide receivers, Roberts, Kingston, JoJo, they all had miscues, whether drops or tip balls, that didn't help out Bear Bachmeier. And that position group has got to get right. And then you add in the fact that JoJo Phillips, he was banged up in a sling after the game. That's a little bit of a banged up group. Now, the good news is that Cody Hagan, I think, has continued to show well early on this season, and he can step in for a JoJo Phillips. I thought Tiger Bachmeier in the return game was excellent, and I would imagine if JoJo is out, that creates more of an opportunity for Tiger and Cody Hagan too. But that receiver unit's got to get better for Bear Bachmeier. They've got to help out the young signal caller, and so that's an area where BYU has to improve. But that's really my only area where I point to saying that they were trending down. I think Bear Bachmeier is playing some really good football right now. I don't look at him as someone trending down. I just think this is kind of what you expect from a true freshman. I know Cougar fans were so excited about the AI-generated bears, the memes, the 47 number. It's all these crazy side stories, but when it gets down to playing on the field, having a true freshman quarterback, it's going to take some time. There's got to be some development there. It takes time, and I think this is the route you take when you go with a true freshman quarterback. You've got to be all in, and you got to be patient, and you've got to expect games where things stall out. And I also say, too, offensive line, I don't say they're trending down because I did see some good things from Kyle Safarachok. I thought he did a really nice job off the bench coming in and basically playing either left guard, right guard. They were kind of switching him around, but I thought he had a really nice game. No penalties. Clean that up. No issues on the offensive line from that, and don't give up any sacks either. Take care of the quarterback and protect his blind side. BYU allowed 3 sacks. That is a number that cannot be happening going forward. You times that over, 9 games in the Big 12, that's 27 sacks allowed. That's way too much. So you've got to clean that up as an offensive line. I think TJ Woods will, but early returns from the O-line, a little bit mixed. I don't say they're trending down. I'm still waiting on Waylon Lapuaho. When he comes back, he kind of rounds everything into form for that offensive line. So kind of putting a hold on my maybe what's trending up and down with the O-line right now. They just got to get better, though. That's an area to monitor moving forward. But all in all, BYU is 2-0, and I do expect this team is going to make improvements from now to East Carolina. I don't look at this as this team's been exposed. They're now going to regress and really start to fade. You saw that 2 years ago when this team was struggling early on. I don't look at it like this. I think that BYU is a good football team. There's going to be some growing pains with a new offense and a new quarterback leading the offense. And I think that in and of itself creates where you're going to have some games where it's not flawless execution. But you did get the Portland State game where it's a proof of concept that they can be flawless. That was a bad opponent, sure, but you can hammer teams. Whereas 2 years ago, you couldn't. And you came out of those 2 games against Sam Houston and Southern Utah, and you're like, yeah, they're 2-0, but it doesn't feel that good. Whereas this 2-0, a lot of work to be done, and I think they can get a lot better. You just wonder, are they a Big 12 title contender? Maybe not right now, but that defense is sure dang good, and he's going to give this offense every opportunity to win any football game on their schedule, and that's a good dynamic for this young offense with Bear Bachmeier leading the way. That's going to do it for this edition of Cougar Tracks. I hope all of you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Pocket Cast, wherever the podcasts are available. Cougar Tracks is available, and I'll talk to you tomorrow on the KSL Sports YouTube, KSLSports.com, and right here on KSL News Radio, your legacy home of the Cougars.